otherwise known as RBP. Got another esports podcast coming at you. I've got Justin M. Jacobson, Esquire, entertainment, sports, and fashion attorney, esports law, business, marketing, brand promotion, and marketing. My goodness, he's got a whole bag of tricks. He's like a Swiss Army knife in the esports world, amongst other industries as well. Welcome, Justin. How are you today, man?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it and excited to talk with you a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So this is our first time getting together, and I know we planned this a couple weeks out, so I really appreciate you keeping in touch with me and keeping me accountable. The time zone difference, you called me up and you said, "Hey, Pete, I'm excited to do this. Let's get on." And so thank you for that, because in the world that we're in, it's very easy for us to get caught up in the windstorm of work that we're always doing. And this is a pleasure for me to stop and do this, because that means I get to take a break from all the other shenanigans and just connect, right? And just take a moment to just connect with somebody. So I appreciate that very much. So Justin, you're involved in lots of different things, but you're incorporating a lot of your focus within the legal side of things and proper representation, not just for those folks outside of the esports world, but you're trying to transition more into the gaming field because you see a need there. When did this occur to you that you're like, you know what, I like games. You may or may not have been like a big gamer at some point. I'm assuming you were, but give us an idea of when that aha moment was for you, and you're like, you know what, I see a pathway.
Well, yeah, I mean, about a year ago, as you had mentioned, I started to kind of shift my focus a little bit to focusing on esports and representing different gamers and some organizations and teams. And I really kind of spent some time exploring the landscape, researching who the big players in the industry were, who the professionals were, who they were representing, how they were kind of going about their business. And I kind of realized that while, with every industry, whether it be entertainment, sports, fashion, there's these top of the top people that are representing the equivalents of the Fortune 500, the Sony, the Warners, the Universal, but while, companies like that are, very important, same thing with these bigger teams like Cloud9 and CLG and Immortal, some of these bigger tier one orgs, I found that, some of the tier two and, some of the less established games and gamers, were really being unrepresented, and there wasn't that much of a focus on them. And honestly, a lot of these teams and organizations weren't really operating properly. They were quote unquote signing guys, they were, getting sponsors and just kind of making social media and going for it. And as I'm sure we see with the news, this practice caused a lot of issues, from name issues to players wanting to leave and, having issues with buyouts, all of the stuff related to that. So once I kind of saw that it seemed like there was definitely a need for some people to kind of come in and fill some of these holes. Coming from the more traditional and, music background, I really saw how you can try to expand, the personalities and the gamers and kind of focus a little bit more on that, the same way you would highlight, an athlete, NFL player's particular personality or, a musician's unique trait. So, I kind of saw that as things were evolving, some of these non-endemic brands, the Audis of the world, Mercedes, Toyota, Geico, were really their imprint and spend real money in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had worked with, some mostly lifestyle brands like clothing, apparel, liquor, energy drinks, who were very much, involved in trying to influence or seed and, do these new product tasting and gifting. And I kind of saw the gamers and sports world as just a new, unique influencer, brand ambassador. And, as all of these different marketers and Forbes and everyone reports, the people that are really involved in gaming, this key demographic is really what a lot of these brands are looking for. And it's not the kind of same barriers, especially financially, as you do with some of the other major sports. To get an NFL player with 2-3 million Twitter followers to do anything, the budget is much more substantial than it is for, one of these major esports people, even if they're one of the tier one orgs. So I just kind of saw that there was a lot of overlap in kind of spaces in between that I could kind of weave my way into and, make my mark. And, like you said, I've always been kind of a gamer at heart, going back to Nintendo, to Sega, to N64,
Yeah.
to Xbox. I was a StarCraft and a StarCraft 2 dude. So, more nights that I'd like to say were spent in my basement playing StarCraft with my friends. And, I've always played 2K and Madden. So once I saw that, 2K was premiering this league, and you had 17 legit NBA teams involved, I really shifted my focus to that game because I see a lot of potential in it. And,
Yeah.
it's a lot more generally applicable than maybe Overwatch or League of Legends, where you really have to know what's going on to really enjoy it.
Right, right. It makes it easier for the spectators that are outside of this world to take a look, and they quickly recognize something that's familiar, and that more than likely they've seen their kids or their kids' friends either playing in some regard, and usually it's an eye opener. Like just the other day on Saturday, I took my daughter out to an Overwatch League party, and everyone's clapping and celebrating and getting really excited about Houston doing really well, and people outside of the room are stopping to come and see what all the hype is about. And they were just kind of shocked and eyes wide open when they noticed that they're cheering on a video game on the screen. So this new energy is new for a lot of people. I still run into people every day that don't even know what Twitch.tv is. And so we're still in the upswing. People. Yeah, I mean, like
I talked with some major modeling agencies who are, I'm like, go check it out. Like, it's going to be very valuable, to your clients if you know how to use it properly. But it's not even a thing that's on their radar right now.
No, you nailed it right on the head. And so there's clearly an opportunity here to set the framework to ensure that the folks that are getting into this industry have proper representation. We're glad that we have people like you out in the world that are taking the necessary steps to kind of, proverbially roll out the red carpet for kind of a seamless pathway. I guess, of course, there's always going to be blockers along that road, but here's an indication that there is a career transition that's happening for a lot of people, and even for the young guys that are coming up into this, their parents probably pressuring them to pursue some other career at some point until they were able to see what these larger spectacles are, the big events at Vegas, right? The ESLs of the world, the dream hacks of the world, things of that nature. And so from somebody who's kind of inside of it, right, what is the messaging that you normally say to like the moms and dads out there when their kid is like kind of, at odds with their parents and they don't really have a support system?
I mean, obviously that's, one of those touchy subjects depending on how old they are. I had talked to a client last week who's 16, so it was me, him, and his mom on the phone, and, we were discussing him maybe doing Overwatch contenders and, what this means, and it's like, it's unique that the mom was really supportive of it, and it was very nice that, she kind of saw the whole picture. But, sometimes, especially if you're a little bit older, maybe you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're already in college, I could see how some parents may be like, oh, you're not dropping out of college to go play video games. But, when you start showing the numbers, like, numbers don't lie. Like, was it a year or two ago they sold out the Staples Center in, like, a matter of an hour for League of Legends? Like,
Right.
Like, you can't make that up. Like,
a $24 million prize pool for Dota 2 International in Seattle, Washington.
Like,
I mean, you can't ignore this.
$10 million for the first place team, like multi-million-dollar prizes for the next ones. Like, this is real numbers. Obviously, you're splitting between 5 guys, and the organization gets a cut. But really, at the end of the day, some of those guys are making 6 figures. A little bit more, a little bit less, obviously depending on how well you do. But, that's a real career, that you go to high school, you go to college, you go to some graduate school to get a 6-figure job.
So let's forecast a little bit on this same topic. We're seeing the upswing. How do you feel about kind of the next 5, 6, 7 years? Are we going to look and see a dwindling of classic traditional sports? NFL viewership has kind of dwindled over the past couple of years, and they make that announcement like during the playoffs. They had half of the viewership was just dropped off. Half of the viewership showing up to watch this like lead up to the Super Bowl. that's significant to me in that all my life I've been surrounded by these classic sports fanatics in my families, and now their kids are just tuning out and tuning into something else that is a bit more inclusive, and they get to participate in real time with people from all over the world. How do you see this kind of culminating over the next few years?
I mean, ultimately, obviously the traditional sports, baseball, football, basketball, to a lesser extent hockey, they have an established fan base. There's more than there's millions upon people in the U.S., for instance, that are going to be fans. But as you're saying, the younger kids are starting to shift away from that. They're spending a lot more time indoors and less time out there. The concussion issues in the NFL and some of the other sports where lacrosse or soccer, you're still running at each other and you still can collide. You're just not firing your heads at each other like in the football. So I think that the fact that there's a lot less risk, and it's like you said, there's a lot more accessible to people. All you need is a video game and a system. Whereas to play, football, you need pads and helmets and cleats and everything, and it's a lot more barriers to get into it. So I think that the fact that there's less barriers really helps, general usership.
Yeah,
Also,
I feel like every
you're
home
looking at
has a
the
gaming
internet.
console nowadays anyway. Yeah.
And you're looking at the internet where you can have hundreds of millions of people watching. So you're kind of comparing two different things where the potential worldwide market for esports is just much larger than it is for maybe the NFL or the NBA alone. You haven't really seen NFL Europes of the world doing that successful.
Yeah, there is this U.S. exceptionalism regarding classical sports. Baseball isn't a global sport. I mean, there's variations of it.
Japan and Korea, it's become pretty, it's really big there.
Yeah, in football, at least American football, it's primarily here. And I know there is some push to have other countries that have their minor leagues, and they do participate in some modified version of that. But I feel like there's still, soccer is still significantly larger in terms of participation and popularity. And so I feel like even that is kind of on the upswing here in the States.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's funny. I think that a lot of the mainstream of FIFA has a lot to do with it, the video game. Because I never was really that big into soccer and knew the players, knew kind of that much. So I really started to play FIFA, and then it just kind of, really exposes you to, some of the younger guys, some of, the more mainstream guys. Whereas, in other years, not FIFA really hasn't been that big. It's kind of been in the last couple of years that it's started to really take over.
Just want to break down some walls and get as many people in here as possible. Would you say that that's kind of somewhere where you feel like you want to exist?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, coming from the more, my background during college and stuff was, I was a really big high-end club promoter, doing a lot of the top places in New York, DC, and London. So pretty much coming from that more mainstream, kind of, I guess, bougie kind of world to exposing that whole world to what's going on over in esports. As soon as I started putting up articles and, sharing different news articles on LinkedIn and social media, all of these people are like, oh, what's esports? What's going on here? All these people are kind of reaching out to me. I had brands reaching out to me, pitching me like, oh, let me know some of the people you're working with. We'd love to hear it. So it's just kind of like someone who had spent the last, decade in the music business, managed a DJ, was very, very involved in, that stuff, kind of just staking his claim and jumping into this gaming world, kind of brought it to a new light, into a new audience that didn't even know such a thing existed. They would just never kind of cross their paths.
Mm-hmm.
For professional video gamers, professional gaming, especially some of the professionals that have been representing them, they all are very endemic to the industry.
Right.
They haven't done deals with the Warners and the Sonys and the Universals like me or someone coming from, the more entertainment focused world is.
Mm-hmm.
So, while they've been doing the gaming for 3 to 5, whatever years, that's really all that they know. So their network is those people, who they've connected with, who they've worked with, is very much all within the same circle. So, when they come to me, it's very much like, hey, which obviously has its benefits, because you can call up, Steve at Team Liquid and, all Noah and all these guys without a problem because you've been working with them since the beginning. But, I think that it's nice that I come from, a different background and have different experiences that's very similar, developing and working with talent and the branding, whether you're a fashion designer, whether you're a painter, whether you're a musician, a DJ, or a gamer, you have a lot of the similar needs. You have a very similar kind of mindset and approach. And, that I think is the biggest thing that, I'm already familiar with how to interact with talent.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ways to kind of explain stuff to them,
Yeah.
where you spend an hour and a half going through an agreement because like we have to kind of go through this line and explain to you what it means and what it really means and, why am I editing it this way? Like, I really want them to kind of understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I think that that's very important because they need to be educated and, there's a lot of misconception among gamers and players that, we don't need someone to look it over or we're just going to sign whatever we give or it's non-negotiable and, that's it. So, half the battle has been kind of educating the community that people like me exist and that they're necessary. Other industry, every other model, music, art, fashion, sports, literary, theater, everyone has these representatives that are, handling and assisting and advising you. And, that's just kind of been the biggest thing that I've been working on and trying to help.
Well, thank you for the share. For folks that want to find you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Follow me on Twitter at JustinJESQ. JustinJESQ. I'm always posting, great useful articles on my articles. So be on the lookout for that. www.jacobsonfirm.com. JACOBSON firm. A lot of our articles on all different topics and my general contact info is right there.
Perfect. And any events that you're going to be attending that folks might be able to find you?
Nothing right now on the horizon. I'm hopefully working on some things to have in New York. So when that gets finalized, we'll definitely send it out to the world. And I'm hoping there's another Knicks gaming event soon because the last one last week was phenomenal. So,
NBA 2K making its rise.
Yeah, 2K League.
Yeah.
Jerry Ferrara was there interacting, having a great time with everyone. The people from the 2K League came. The GM from the Wizards came down up from DC. And it was, a really good time. So,
well, Justin, I really...
Esports in New York.
It's making its moves, and I'm glad to see it all come together. Well, folks, that's going to wrap this up for this quick Q&A here with Justin Jacobson, Esquire.